Good evening. Welcome to Let's Talk with Dr. Shanessa Fenner. Of course, I'm your host, Dr. Shanessa Fenner, and today I have a wonderful guest with me, Dr. Carol Thompson. Welcome, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much for being a guest on my show. Now, today, Dr. Thompson and I are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, the African American male. Okay? Now, Dr. Thompson, both you and I know that whenever our males are born, they already have two strikes against them. One, they're male, another, that they're black. Okay? So talk to me a little bit, Dr. Thompson, about the black male and some of the issues and all that they face at this time.
Okay. Well, one of the big issues is the stereotypes that people have about black males, negative stereotypes that are so prevalent in this society and always have been. So when you are a child and you know that people view you in a negative way, it makes it very hard to become the very best individual that you can become for some folk. Some black males will say, hey, I'm going to show you and use the success is the best revenge motto. But it's not just society. Sometimes parents have accepted some of those negative stereotypes about black males, and sometimes the demonization can actually occur in the home, and particularly with single mothers. Not always, but so often. And as you know, when you look at the statistics, a black male who is raised by a single mom tends to be more likely to have a negative outcome than a black male who has two parents in the home. So basically, if we can work with teachers, policymakers, law enforcement, parents, and others on their negative mental baggage about black males, a lot of the problems that we're having in this society, such as the mass incarceration of blacks, particularly black males, the overrepresentation of black males among the students who are suspended and expelled from school, retained in a grade, who drop out of school, who are reading below grade level at the end of third and fourth grade, a lot of those problems will disappear when we get people to face and eradicate their negative beliefs about black males.
Okay. Now, you know, Dr. Gill, whenever you want to dismantle a family, you know, the first person that you take is the head, okay? Now, we know that 70% of households are run by single black women, okay? So, of course, the dismantling of the black family, of course, contributes to this, you know. They don't have that positive African-American male role model, you know, call their father or uncle or grandfather or so forth. So, you know, let's talk a little bit about the dismantling. And I wonder sometimes, you know, is that something that, of course, has it been set up to happen, you know, the dismantling of the family, so that, you know, our black boys have a hard time?
Yes, it actually has. There's a historical record there, basically from the slavery era, where, you know, the black male was viewed as a worker and a breeder. To have children, not necessarily form a bond with those children, because the children were viewed as property who could be sold at any time. And then after the slavery era ended, where America still needed free labor, but now slavery's illegal, so what do? That mass incarceration of black males has basically an origin during the Reconstruction era, when black males were rounded up so that the country could continue to have free labor, taken out of homes, not encouraged to form ties and bonds. And then even when I was growing up, for example, my family was on welfare. My parents are divorced at a very young age, but I know for a fact that a woman who was struggling financially was told that if you want to receive a government financial assistance from the government to feed your children, you cannot have a male in the home. I've heard women tell me that social workers would come into public housing projects and tell them, if you get rid of the man, you can get a check. So the U.S. government has played a role in this perfect term that you use, the dismantling of the black family. And now people point and say that black people don't don't have family values and so on, but they need to look at the history also as to why this has happened.
Okay. Now, Dr. Thompson, when did this stereotype, because I know when I talk with my black males a lot, we have conversations about stereotypes. And I tell them all the time, I want you to live every day to show people that you don't fit the stereotype that they have of you. Where did this negative stereotype derive from?
You know, first of all, there had to be a justification for slavery. When you have people in a so-called Christian nation, people who go to church, people who read their Bibles and call themselves Christians, who are actually owning slaves or condoning slavery, you have to be able to rationalize that. And so what people said was, well, they're not really human. They're beasts. They're animals. They're lower in intelligence, et cetera, et cetera. So the demonization goes, far back, probably even before the slavery era, but definitely during the American slavery era and also the British slavery era. They had to stereotype these black males, their children, and their women and say they're less than human. And so there are people now who have grown up hearing all these stereotypes that have been passed on for centuries, and they take them into the classroom, or when you have a person who's a member of law enforcement, there's a great book called Breaking Rank, which was written by a white police chief who wrote a chapter called Why Young White Cops Kill Black Males, and he said the reason is fear. They've been taught that the darker the guy is, the bigger he is. In other words, the more beast-like he is, the more dangerous he is. So those officers are going to shoot first or tase first or use the billy club first and assume that the person is this predator and this dangerous person, etc. But it all goes back to that negative mental baggage that has not been addressed. And all of us, black women, have adopted a lot of very negative stereotypes about black males too, because we're a part of this culture in which we're bombarded with negative images and negative messages about black males through the media, all over the place.
Okay. Of course, the Trayvon Martin case was an issue that just, stirred America. And of course, when I would talk with my friends and they would tell me about the conversations that they were having with their black sons after the Trayvon Martin case, and they would tell me things like, Shanessa, I had to sit him down and tell him, if you're approached by an officer, I don't want you to say a lot. I want you to watch how you hold your hands, watch your statute, conversations around America were everywhere about how we need to talk to our black children, our black sons especially, about their demeanor and not appear to be so aggressive and so threatening and all. And I was like, oh my goodness, But those conversations, of course, they're necessary.
They're very necessary, so necessary that in my book, A Brighter Day, okay, How Parents Can Help African American Youth, I devoted a whole chapter to explaining what parents need to do to decrease their children's chances of ending up in the prison pipeline. A lot of that information is based on research, but a lot of it is based on what I, as a parent, and my husband, as a parent, did with our children who are now adults, including our son, who just earned his mechanical engineering degree. Wonderful. But we have 2 grandsons now, black males. Mm-hmm. And so in that chapter, I tell parents, this is what you can do with your children in order to decrease their chances of being shot, abused when they're pulled over by the police, ending up in the prison system. Both of my brothers, I don't know if you know this, ended up at young ages looking for positive male role models, not finding any. One was approached by the most notorious gang in San Diego at that time, San Diego, California. He became a gang member at age 14, was shot for the first time when he was 14 years old, was murdered 20 years later. And then my other brother actually starved himself to death in prison. And so I tell my brother's stories in that chapter, and I share what I know that parents can do to save their children's lives. So one thing is to let your children know to always be respectful to law enforcement, even if you feel like somebody has pulled you over or stopped you. I was presenting in Iowa recently, and a young black boy was about to go to court. He had been roughed up by a school security guard, slammed against the locker, and thank God I was going to be presenting with the police chief. And so I got to ask the police chief, will you talk to this young man before he goes into court and hear his story? And basically the school security officer had caused a minor situation to escalate, and yet this boy got written up and arrested. So encouraging our children to be polite to law enforcement, even if you feel that they're being wrong, be respectful, do not talk back, don't give them an excuse to beat you or, God forbid, to shoot you. because that fear is also in the back of their minds. They're leading very dangerous jobs, and fear is always present for them, especially if it's somebody that I've been taught to fear on top of that. So teaching our children to be very, very respectful. And if you're pulled over, put your hands on. A friend of mine who's an attorney, Marilyn Quayle, said that she always taught her children, put your hands on that steering wheel. Do not reach into your pocket for a wallet. Don't reach over into the seat for a purse. You wait until the officer approaches and gives you permission to do that, because one move, even if it's an innocent one, can cost your life. So in that chapter, there are a lot of things that I encourage parents to share with their children early on to keep them on the right side of the law, and hopefully to save their lives. And also in the chapter on how to work more effectively with educators, I talk to parents about what they can do to decrease their children's chances of being suspended and expelled from school. There's a whole script to use and strategies to share with them.
Okay. And of course, Dr. Thompson, we need to teach our children also to love themselves and to love their culture. You know, sometimes when you come from a race with this, people are, talking about you, put you down, you've been suppressed, oppressed, depressed. And, we need to also teach them how to love themselves, love their skin tone, love their hair texture, love their style and their swag, and not to listen to the media who depicts you as being something negative or lazy or unsmart or unkind or something, or criminal, That's also something that also needs to be addressed, because sometimes I wonder, do our children really love themselves, and do they really know about their history and what happened, back in the day to make you appreciate this free education that you have, and you need to take advantage of it as well.
Excellent points. And I totally agree with you. In the book, I spend a lot of time talking about self-esteem, because a lot of the self-hatred comes from parents who look at the child and does not like the way the child's features are, the child's hair texture, skin tone, and the parent is the first person that is often instilling those negative messages about the child's appearance, and the self-hatred starts right there in the home with the parent who has not been taught to love herself and to accept herself and to see beauty in herself, let alone in a child who has features that she has been taught are ugly or whatever. The recent doll studies, way back in the 50s, Dr. Kenneth Clark and Dr. Mamie Clark, and I talk about this when I'm doing parent empowerment workshops, they showed that black children, when given a choice, found beauty in white dolls, and they would reject the black dolls. Many people have replicated those doll studies and found out that little black girls are still selecting the white doll as the standard of beauty, but a lot of it comes from parents who have not taught that child, if you're coal black or if you're bright yellow or nearly white or somewhere in between, you are beautiful, darling, and let me tell you why. So when parents arm those children with wonderful, wonderful messages about how wonderful and beautiful they are before they leave home. So when they get to school and somebody says you're ugly, oh no, I'm not, my mama taught me, blah, blah, blah. We don't get that. So a lot of it is getting our parents to understand how powerful they are and how they can use their power. Just like teachers can use their power, law enforcement can abuse their power, so can parents, and getting them to see that often the negative outcomes that we see with some of our black males and our black females are because of issues in the home.
And you're absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. I have a good friend right now, she's dark-skinned, and she told me one night she broke down and cried, and she said that all her life people would tell her that she was ugly because she was dark-skinned, and she's just absolutely beautiful. Her hair is beautiful and long, and she's dark-skinned, it's just as beautiful as she can be. And we had a conversation one night where she broke down and was talking about, how she was basically taught, and heard all her life that she was ugly, and she's just as beautiful as she can be. Also, parents sometimes when they get mad at their sons, they say, you look just like your daddy, you make me sick, That's something also you need to be aware of, because if you have a hate for the father, of course this is going to, make the child feel like, okay, well I look like my daddy, so this is why you're taking it out on me.
So very true, especially mothers who have been wounded by a man. And that child is a constant reminder of the man who is no longer here or you had a bad relationship with. Don't take it out on the child. I recently conducted a parent empowerment workshop for nearly 400 parents from local schools in Fayetteville, and one of the parents was so upset by something that I said. She came up to me afterwards and said, you know, I'm light-skinned, I'm from Georgia, and I was the black sheep of my family, and I don't appreciate what you said. So it can go anyway, be it a light-skinned child who has a dark mother who has rejected that child, but be it a parent who is poisoning her little son's mind or taking her anger and frustration out on that little boy and not realizing that down the road he may beat his girlfriend up because of something mama did. And mama had unfinished business with some man that broke her heart, and the child's the innocent victim. So there's so many issues, and that's why the parent empowerment workshops that I do are among the most fulfilling work that I'm doing, because if we can reach the parents and reach the teachers and law enforcement, a lot of the problems that we're having with our black males, teaching our black males conflict resolution skills is a big missing piece of the puzzle. Because if all you know to do is to fight because you got beaten down in the home over something, you're angry, and that's the number one reason why our boys are getting suspended for fighting and for disrespect. When I just came from Iowa, teachers are saying the boys are disrespectful, and so are the black girls. Wherever I go, I hear people complaining. So getting our children to have some conflict resolution skills and to have a whole arsenal of behaviors. You know, I can use this strategy, I can use that one. I don't have to curse somebody out. I don't have to fight whenever I'm upset. I can select this tool or that tool or that tool. That's part of what we need to be doing. And our churches are going to have to do a lot more to help parents who need the assistance, with particularly single moms who need that help, but also with the after-school literacy programs, the mentoring programs that are so very needed. Churches everywhere need to step up and do a little bit more. Some churches are doing a lot of wonderful work with the youth, but there's still a lot more work that needs to be done.
And I remember, you know, the church has always been the center of the black community. And you're right, they do need to do more. They really
Especially given how many churches there are around here, there is no reason why all these black males need to be rounded up and in the newspaper on a daily basis. If we have more of this mentoring, the conflict resolutions going on, we also need prison reentry programs. So somebody who got caught up in the system, who's out and wants to work and wants to turn his life around, helping that person find a job. I'm talking to black males, even college students, who are saying, nobody will hire me. I've turned my life around. Nobody will give me a chance. So now my options are limited. I might break into somebody else's house because I'm desperate to eat.
Exactly.
There's a lot of work that we need to be doing that's not being done enough.
My last guest on my show was Johnny Wilson, and we were talking about how, you know, Fayetteville Urban Ministry Find a Friend program, you know, they're in need of male mentors. And he told me, he said, you know, we have a long list of females, you know, but we need males, you know. So Dr. Thompson, why do you think we have more females who are reaching out to mentor, and why aren't the black males doing it?
You know, I can't really speak for the black males except to say this. One of the things that we have to be so careful about is that we're getting quality people, because when you have children who are wounded and who are looking for positive role models, and then you got some predator who's coming up in there to take advantage of that child and further abuse that child, I would rather see 1 million women who are not going to abuse a child be there than somebody who's coming there with a negative ulterior motive, and often that happens. I don't know why. I don't know if it's that they're not getting the message. I know that there are a group of pastors locally who are trying to address the crime problem through mentoring, and that's one of the options, and more recreational programs for the youth and so on. And supposedly they're getting a lot of black males involved with that, the Pastors Coalition. I don't know why we are not getting enough black males, but we do need more. And it might be that we have to go to the colleges and encourage some of the college students to take on the mentoring as a community service project. That might be a way to do it. We have all these black fraternities. We need more of them to step up and not just do great things at Christmas time or here and there, but there are all the links and a lot of other black organizations I would like to see do more ongoing mentoring versus just periodic, or just to members, you know, opening up their services to people who are affiliated with their organizations. There are a lot of people who can be doing a lot more.
Okay. What kind of advice or what kind of insight would you give the African American or black woman who's raising her sons by herself? Daddy didn't come around, daddy didn't call. Matter of fact, you don't even know where daddy is, okay? You don't even know if daddy is still living and breathing, okay? What kind of advice do you give African American females who are raising their sons by themselves? You know, because, hey, they're charged to raise that young man even though daddy's not there.
Great question, because so many are in that predicament. What I will say to you is, wherever I go, I meet outstanding, successful, highly successful black men who are principals, who are lawyers, who are medical doctors, etc., from all walks of life, who were raised by a single mother who did an outstanding job. Yes, it was hard. It's hard work. I was a single mother for a short time in terms of 3 years. And my husband ended up adopting my child, who now has a PhD. But what I will say is, so I know how hard it is to be a single mother. It is not an easy thing when you're tired and so on, but you can do a great job if you treat that, remember the golden rule, treat that child in the way in which you would want to be treated if you were in that child's shoes, to give that child as much love and correction. Learning the difference between discipline and abuse is part of the job that we have to do too. I have a whole chapter in A Brighter Day, How Parents Can Help African American Youth, called "You Brought Me Into This World." I brought you into this world, but you may take me out. And I talk about how the sins of the parents in terms of abuse will come back to haunt you later on. So getting parents to know that just because somebody beat you down and did X, Y, and Z and called it discipline, that is not discipline. Discipline is corrective. Abuse is destructive. And the greatest predictors of who ends up in the prison pipeline are coming from an abusive background and an impoverished background. So getting mama to know that you can't beat that boy down and knock him upside the head and expect him to turn out great. You have to treat him in the way in which you would want to be treated, instill good values in him, take him to church even if he does not want to go. Make sure that you get him heavily involved in good extracurricular activities, because too much idle time on the hands is a great opportunity for gang members to lure that boy into the gang. There's a lot that mothers can do. Look within your own family tree and find some positive, trusted male role models who will take time with your child. Make sure your child is reading and can read.
Yes, yes.
Have that boy read to you. Buy him books about Henry Box Brown, that black man that put himself in a box and had himself mailed to a free state so that he could escape slavery. Have your son read Ben Carson's Gifted Hands. There are so many wonderful books written by black men who had a hard knock life, who turned out well. Ben Carson came from a single parent home, and today he's taking good care of his mother, a very rich neurosurgeon doing well. He had a mother who loved him enough and did a great job with him and his brother. So single moms can do it. They can do it well. It's going to be hard, but they can do it. And single black women have been doing it since time immemorial.
Oh, yes, of course. My sister and I, we're the product of a single mom, you know. My mother raised me and my sister, you know, by herself, you know, and I think she did a great job.
Yes, she did.
It wasn't easy, you know, but yes. Also, Dr. Thompson, you know, our children need exposure. Exposure is so key. You know, they need to take field trips, they need to go to museums, they need to read, they need to explore, you know, the internet. And I mean, we just need to expose them to many facets of life. And a lot of times, Dr. Thompson, you know, when our children come from impoverished backgrounds, you know, that may not be so easy, but we need to make sure that they're exposed and that they realize, you know, that there are other ways of living, you know, where education is a priority. A lot of times when our babies come from impoverished or low socioeconomic backgrounds, you know, all they know is how to survive, you know, how to live, live, you know, month to month, check to check, you know, how to get your clothes washed at the laundromat without getting stolen, you know, how to move in the middle of the night, you know, those are the kinds of things, you know, where can you go and cash your check, you know, without a, you know, just those are the kinds of things. They know, they're street smart and they know about surviving, but we need to expose them, you know, to the way of life that's going to be better for them.
We need to, and that's where the mentors come into play. When I was growing up in a public housing project in San Diego, California, there were white college students that would come in and take us to the zoo in places we would not have been able to go to. And I remember those. There were missionaries that would come in and actually have Bible study on the grass to help us develop good reading skills. There were bookmobiles that would drive into the neighborhood so we could go and check out books right there and take them home. So yes, we need to expose them to much, because if they don't know that it's out there, there are kids that live near the beach in Los Angeles in urban areas who have never even seen the beach. Somebody needs to expose them, and that somebody is all of us who have time. My sister just retired, and instead of sitting around and resting on her laurels, she's out at a community center working with senior citizens. She goes to a soup kitchen and feeds needy people. She's finding ways to give back even though she has retired. So there's work for everybody to do. I did a workshop at Mount Sinai Church here because the seniors wanted to start an after-school mentoring program. These are senior citizens who have retired, who want to know how to better connect with the youth. Every church needs to be doing these kinds of wonderful things that pastor and other pastors are doing, but also, not everybody's affiliated with the church. We got a lot of community leaders who need to be getting literacy programs and mentoring programs and prison reentry programs established as well. And our lawmakers need to make this a priority. Local lawmakers, state, and our national lawmakers need to make the welfare of our black males and all of our youth a national priority.
Exactly. Dr. Thompson, I'm sitting here thinking about a conversation that I had with one of the little boys that I know very well, and I love to ask children, about their future. Where do you see yourself? When you graduate from high school, what are your plans? So I was having a conversation with a little boy, and I said, so what college are you going to? And he said, I'm not going to college. I said, what do you mean you're not going to college? Because of course that's a problem for me, being the overachiever. And I said, well, how are you going to make money? I'm going to cut grass. I said, don't you ever say that to me again for as long as you live. Don't you ever tell me again, as long as you have breath in your body, that you're going to cut grass and make a living. Now sit down, let's have a conversation about how you're going to college, okay? And see, Dr. Gail, those are the kinds of things, that really bother me. On the inside, I'm like, oh my God, goodness, I can't believe, And the black male who always wants to become a football player, I just, and they always want to become a football player. And I'm like, baby, what's your backup plan, okay? Yes. Everybody can't be, that's a small percentage. Everybody can't be a football player, sweetie. What's your backup plan?
And this is where the mentors and the adults need to come into play in helping them to have a backup plan, helping them to see. One of the things that I used to do when I was a high school teacher was I would put on the chalkboard how much the average person who had dropped out of college made, how high school made, the average high school graduate made, the average person who had an AA degree, BA, on and on and on. And the students would look at those numbers from the U.S. Census Bureau and be shocked and say, I'm going to college. Yes. So helping them to develop a backup plan and to look at the odds of becoming, the athlete or the rapper or whatever it is that they are aspiring to become. That's all right, but you need to have a backup plan. And not only that, a roadmap. When I go out and work with the youth, I help them to develop a roadmap to success. Okay. And that's part of what mentors can also do. Okay.
Dr. Thompson, our time's up. You see how fast time flies?
It does fly when you're having fun.
Yes. I'd like for you to give the audience your contact information, your website information at this time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Dr. Gail Thompson, the Wells Fargo Endowed Professor of Education at Fayetteville State University. My website is www.drgailthompson.com, www.drgailthompson.com.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you.
And thank you, audience, for watching my show, Let's Talk with Dr. Shanessa Fenner. Have a great evening.
Stranger, wait, hold up.